Never be on tiptoe. Kevin, we walked in. I feel like look at here. I like it. I like it. We forgot.
Call the meeting to order. Just to let everybody know, we had an executive session was held on Friday, March 15th at 9:30, and also this evening, March 25th, to discuss legal and personnel matter. We will move to public comment on agenda items. This one, yeah. The Michelle Mowry ELA curriculum.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I just want to give you a little bit of update of what's going on in the schools, at least for kindergarten. On Thursday, March 14th, we had a Zoom meeting with the Director of Curriculum and kindergarten teachers to discuss sight words in the ELA curriculum. 3 out of 4 of those elementaries are using sight words from both foundations in my view. Only one isn't. The ELA curriculum that the district gave us at the beginning of the school year tells us to use my view sight words, language, writing, and comprehension. And I do have a copy of that curriculum with me in case anybody would like to look at it. Just ask me, I'll be happy to share. However, in the Zoom meeting, the Director of Curriculum said my view was, and I quote, only for comprehension, unquote. Nothing else, not for sight words, language, writing, only comprehension. So if we use only foundations for sight words, the students will only know 27 sight words by the end of the school year. If we use my view for sight words, the students will know 90 sight words. If we combine both and use my view and foundations, both programs the district paid for, the kids would know 95 sight words. I'm not sure why the district would want to go backwards and lower the standards to only 27 sight words, when our district is already ranked low across the state. I'm also not sure why the district would pay $500,000 for a program that's only to be used for comprehension, especially when we already had textbooks to use for comprehension from our last program. You wouldn't even have to buy a new program if that was the case. Not sure why the district would give teachers a brand new curriculum specifically for the brand new ELA program, and then 3/4 of the way through the school year say, no, we're not going to use those and we're going to change it for next year. I'm not sure why the district would pay teachers to work during the summer to create a brand new curriculum to go with the brand new ELA program, then not use that curriculum that was created and given to us. To me, it seems like a lot of wasted money and time, not to mention lowering our standards. Now, for me as a teacher, going to only 27 sight words in kindergarten, that's a heck of a lot easier for me on my job and my time. But that doesn't help our kids. That's not what they need. We need to higher our standards, not lower them. And when you keep changing the expectations in the curriculum, teachers have to keep making centers for these things. And that's costing the district through using, cardstock, ink, paper, or the color ink, the laminating, not to mention the time. Teachers get burned out when you change the curriculum constantly. We have to redo all these things. And it keeps teachers from going the extra mile and doing all the extras with the students. Because after a while, they just say, what's the point? They're just going to change it again in a year. Why should we make all these things for our students when they're just going to change it again? So, I don't know, I think you guys should really look at this and see what's best for the kids and not what's necessarily easiest. Thank you.
That's all we have for agenda items. Athletics, Mr. Renzi.
Thank you, Mr. Manzo. Request approval of the supplemental resignation of the equipment manager effective immediately. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
I think that's all we have. Anything else, Mr. Martucci?
No, sir.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing else, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to buildings and grounds, Mr. Detweiler.
All right, thank you, Mr. Panzella. Facilities, I'd like to request approval of the following event and building usage requests. With no objections, I'd like to spread items 1 to 11.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
And request approval to purchase a self-propelled auto scrubber from Fagan Supply at a cost of $10,945.10. With no questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
That is a Scott Kirsch question. What building is that going to? Is there current ones like?
Broken out there? The one we got was a tent scrubber from 1996, I believe. It's gonna run maybe half a year, it might be a whole year out, but I don't want to take a chance.
Any other questions? Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Kokenar, you have anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Kirsch, anything additional?
No, thank you.
All right, that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. Moving to Carnegie Free Library, Mrs. Driscoll.
We have nothing.
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to Collinsville Area Career and Technical Center, Mr. Kokenar.
Thank you, Mr. Mandela. Request approval to accept the 2023-2024 competitive equipment grant in the amount of $85,000. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
10B, request approval for Justin Striner, heavy equipment instructor and co-chair of the competition committee to attend the PA for state heavy equipment operation competition, Volvo Customer Care Center, Shippensburg, April 3rd through the 5th, 2024. Volvo equipment will cover lodging in the district, covering mileage and meal reimbursements. No questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzella. Mr. Detweiler.
Nothing. Thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kokenar. Moving to curriculum, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval of the 6-year agreement with McGraw-Hill for the purchase of Study Sync ELA for grades 6 to 12 at a cost of $435,708 pending solicitor review, subject to the Collinsville Area School District's standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services. With no questions or objections, I'd like to place on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to purchase Foundation's readers for grades K and 1 at a cost of $54,309 to be paid from ARP ESSER funds, pending solicitor review, subject to the Collinsville Area School District's standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services. With no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to add German 4 to the CAHS course handbook for the 2024-25 school year as proposed. With no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
And request approval of the following professional employee travel. Ashley Myers, Bridget Starr, Lori Wiltrout, Jenny Becker are requesting to virtually attend the Teaching Students to Drive Their Learning Virtual Institute, June 24, 2024, at a registration cost of $299 per person, to be paid by federal funds. Number 2, Jennifer Sanzone, Julie Bond, Ashley Fritz, Angela Bailey, Jill Udell are requesting to attend the intensive skills training for students with emotional behavior disorders, May 7, 8, 9, 2024, at an approximate cost of $1,500 for substitutes of mileage to be paid from ARP ESSER learning loss. And number 3, Stephanie Romanishin is requesting to attend the session prompted with a purpose, a chatbot education collaborative intermediate unit 1, April 5, 2024, at an approximate cost of $15 for registration. With no question or objection, I'd like to place on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
And for informational purposes, we have a committee meeting held March 14th at 10 a.m. And that's all I have, Mr. Detweiler.
Nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Renzi.
Nothing.
Dr. Coons.
I actually would like to take a moment to acknowledge our ELA teachers in 6 through 12. Anytime we do a textbook adoption, especially in the area of ELA, there is quite a bit of work, and they began at the beginning of this year reviewing materials. We had to contact districts, they narrowed things down, watched presentations, and the committee came up with this particular series for the adoption. So I just wanted to acknowledge all their work. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to cyber, Mr. Martray.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. We have nothing for the agenda this month. Mrs. Driscoll, you have anything additional?
I have nothing.
Mr. Harshman?
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing, thank you. That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martray. Moving to federal programs, Mr. Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Item 13A, STEM Enrichment Camp. Request approval to hold a 2-day STEM Enrichment Camp with dates to be determined at Bullskin Elementary, Dunbar Township Elementary, Springfield Clifford and Fritz Elementary, West Crawford Elementary, Connellsville Area Middle School, and the Connellsville Area High School at an approximate cost of $20,000 to be paid for by the Title IV funds pending approval ability of staffing. No questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Item 13B, Kinder Camp. Request approval to hold Kinder Camp for incoming kindergarten students to be held at each elementary building in August at an approximate cost of $12,000 with costs paid from Title I funds. No questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Item 13C, Tech Camp. Request approval to hold a CASD Tech Camp with date and times to be determined. Availability for teachers to attend a day of professional development hosted by the Connellsville administrative team and staff. This camp will focus on introductory and advanced level training sessions tailored to teachers' needs in the areas of new technology initiatives and core instructional practices, paid for by Title IV professional development funds. No questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
13D, informational federal committee meeting was held on March 14th at 9 a.m. That's all I have, Mr. Renzi.
I have nothing.
Mr. Martucci.
No, sir.
Dr. Koontz.
I have nothing. Thank you.
That's all we have, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harshman. Moving to finance, Mr. Renzi.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval to accept the 2023-24 Connellsville Area Career and Technical Center PCCD Mental Health Grant in the amount of $70,000. No questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the 2023-2024 School District Meritorious Grant in the amount of $45,000. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the resolution for Dunbar Township, Fayette County Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance as proposed. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the attached requisitions, orders, and to authorize District Business Office to process purchase orders and payments. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the following donations. To the CAHS Bible Club from the Central Fellowship Church in the amount of $50. To the Connellsville Area High School Musical Club from Pleasant Valley Golf Club for Cass Mill, Sparks Catering for Cass Mill, Italian Oven for Cass Mill, Walmart for Cass Mill, Huffman's Auto, $275.20 for drinks, etc. Kim Labuda, $114 for meals. Fox's Tavern, Cass Mill. How We Like You's Family, Cass Mill. G&D Market for Cass Mill. CAHS Musical Parents Association, $2,325. Lynn and Harry Ridner, $50. And many parent donations of cake, cupcakes, cookies, fruit trays, vegetable trays, etc. To the Connellsville Area High School Choral Club from Linda Brown's Floral for $80, to Springfield Clifford M. Prince Elementary School from the Indian Creek Valley Lions Club, a swing set valued at $2,247. Request approval to add, I'm sorry, I have no questions or objections. I'd like to have those all placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to add Mid-Penn Bank as a district depository. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the memorandum of understanding between Private Industry Council at Westmoreland Fayette Incorporated and the Collinsville School District to operate its pre-K counts program at Springfield Clifford M. Prince Elementary School beginning August 1st, 2023 and ending on June 30th, 2024. PIC shall pay the district a sum of $9,774 per year in 9 monthly installments of $1,086 as proposed. No questions or objections. I'd like to have placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the memorandum of understanding between Private Industry Council of Westmoreland Fayette Incorporated and the Collinsville Area School District to operate its pre-K counts and Head Start program at 730 Rockridge Road beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending on June 30th, 2025. PIC shall pay the district a sum of $46,980 per year in 12-month installments of $3,915 as proposed. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And we had a Finance Committee meeting on March 19th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Anything you'd like to add? Mr. Delwell.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kokenauer. And Mrs. Routson. That's all I have, Mr. Cantola. I'm sorry?
I think we have the dates are wrong on the pre-K counts, Springfield. Should that be August 1st, 2024?
It should be.
2025. Yep, good catch, Mr. Harshman.
That's okay, Mrs. Routson. Thanks, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Cantola.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to food service, Mr. Martret.
Nothing, thank
Thank you, Mr. Martret. Personnel and review and liaison, Mr. Renzi.
Okay, thank you. Request approval to enter into the confidential employee settlement and release agreement involving employee number 2208, which agreement is incorporated herein by reference, and to authorize the superintendent to execute such settlement and release agreement on behalf of the district, and to take such steps as may be necessary to effectuate such agreement. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of a teacher effective May 30th, 2024. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of cafeteria worker effective June 5th, 2024. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of an aide effective March 15th, 2024. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request the confidential approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background check of the following additions to the professional substitute list for the 2023-2024 school year. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following addition to the support personnel substitute list for the 2023-2024 school year. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for an aide to take an unpaid leave of absence beginning March 6, 2024 for the remainder of the 2023-2024 school year. No questions or objections. I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
the following Family and Medical Leave Act leaves as confirmed by the board. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And request approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Collinsville Area School District and the Collinsville Area Education Association regarding ELA coaches. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Anything else, Mr. Detweiler?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Martucci?
No, sir.
Mrs. Kokenar? Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Manzella.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to policy and legislative, Mr. Martre.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. This is a policy edition. First reading was February 28th. Request approval of the following edition: 113 AR-0 procedural guidelines for agencies providing therapeutic intervention. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda with no questions or objections.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Okay, Mrs. Driscoll, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing.
Mr. Harshman?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing else, thank
That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martre. Moving to safety and security, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval to purchase 43 surveillance cameras, storage server, and related supplies and equipment from Fuchsia Computing Solutions at a cost of $44,962 to be paid for from the PCCD grant. With no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Good question on that. Are these cameras, surveillance cameras, going to be in all buildings or just certain ones? Or
This is,
do we know?
yes,
All buildings?
no, this is the plan for the stadium. We're finally going to have the stadium wired and set up surveillance cameras.
So 43 of them out there in the...
Yes, sir, that's quite a large place.
Okay, thank
Hopefully we'll be able to accommodate it.
Thank you, Mr. Parlay. That's all I have. Mrs. Driscoll.
I have nothing, thank you.
And you have anything else, Mr. Parlay?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Panzella, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to special education, Mr. Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Item 19A, IDEA policies and procedures. Request approval of the adoption of the Intermediate Unit 1 IDEA Part B policies and procedures as proposed. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Item 19B, Special Education Committee meeting was held March 19, 2024 at 2 p.m. So all I have, Mrs. Driscoll.
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Mr. Martre.
Yes, sir.
Mr. D'Amico.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Harshman. Moving to student services, Mrs. Driscoll.
Okay. 20A, travel in accordance with policy number 121, request approval of the following travel, and I'd just like to add everything in the list from 1 to 35.
Yes, ma'am.
If there are no questions or comments, I'd like that added to the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be added.
20B, supplemental resignation, request approval of the supplemental resignation of the marketing director at the completion of the 2023-2024 school year. And I'd like that placed on the agenda if there are any questions.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And 20C, student services meeting, the committee meeting was held March 19th, 2024 at 3 p.m. And I'd like all this on the agenda. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I have nothing.
Hirschman? Mr. Kuknow?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Domingo?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to technology, Mr. Detweiler.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. I'd like to request approval to purchase 17 iMac computers for the mobile gaming design networking classroom from Apple at a cost of $24,293, with $7,200 to be provided by the Falcon Foundation. With no questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
The agenda.
I'm going to do a 21B1 and B2. I'll do B1 first, of course. I'd like to request approval of the 5-year copier lease Maintenance agreement, this is the superintendent's handwriting, so I'm struggling. Maintenance agreement between CASB and Toshiba Business Solutions at a monthly cost of $7,630.87 with no questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
21B2 will state, request approval to re-advertise for the copier lease maintenance proposal. With no questions or objections on that, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
I'd like to request approval to purchase 1,200 Chromebooks from GovConnection at a cost of $339,600 to be paid for from the ARP ESSER funds, PEPLM contract 532462004. With no questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Martrey, you have anything? Mr. Harshman?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Ghost? All right, thank you, sir. That's all we have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. Moving to transportation, Mr. Coconut.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. 22A, request approval of the attached updates, additions to the bus van drivers list. No questions or objections. I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzella. Mr. Martucci?
No, sir.
Mr. Renzi?
I have nothing, sir.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coconut. We have nothing under non-agenda items. Assistant to the superintendent.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Nothing, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.